I'm 28, and on paper, I'm doing fine in the most aggressively average way possible. I'm a mid-level developer at a company so small it could disappear tomorrow and nobody outside of our Slack would notice. I'm not wealthy, but I'm not living off ramen fumes either. And I drive a Toyota that looks like it's survived at least two apocalypses and one extremely personal grudge against potholes. Which is impressive, because that thing should have retired years ago, but keeps waking up every morning out of spite. I rent an apartment with walls so thin I can hear my neighbor narrate his digestive system's emotional journey like it's a true crime podcast. And I used to be the kind of skinny in high school where you'd look at me and think that kid could get taken out by a strong exhale. So eventually I got tired of resembling a haunted coat hanger and started lifting 3 years ago, not to become a marble statue or anything. But at least now if a stiff breeze hits me, I don't immediately fold like wet cardboard. My skin was also a battlefield for most of my teenage and early adult life, and I spent enough time trying acne treatments that I'm pretty sure I could write a medical review paper on benzoyl peroxide. But somehow, finally, my face calmed down, and with a combination of slightly more muscle and slightly less pizza face, life landed in that could-be-worse middle zone where nothing is spectacular but nothing is actively on fire, which is basically the millennial dream. And when, night, because I'm a champion of terrible decisions, I'm in bed at 1 a.m. doing the classic degenerate activity of scrolling Instagram, like sleep is optional and tomorrow's responsibilities are a myth. When my phone buzzes and I see a notification that someone liked a photo I posted 2 summers ago, and my first thought is, who has the time, the commitment, and the emotional damage required to scroll that far back? And then I see the name attached to the like, Brittany Marie, and my brain instantly opens a dusty vault labeled Do Not Touch, because Brittany isn't just some random person from my past, she's the Brittany, capital B, the high school cheerleader, the social planet everyone orbited. The girl I spent 4 straight years idolizing, like a pathetic little monk worshipping the goddess of lip gloss and varsity jackets. I tap her profile and immediately regret having functional thumbs, because there she is, still posting selfies and motivational quotes like she's running a one-woman inspirational pipeline. But the vibe is different now. Filters working overtime, captions that read like soft bitterness wrapped in emojis, lots of men are trash, where are the good ones? And ready for something real, which in translation means the guys she wants keep treating commitment like a contagious disease. While I'm doom-scrolling her page out of morbid curiosity, she starts liking more of my photos, recent ones, then older ones, then ancient ones, like she's on a scavenger hunt through my life. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is either a glitch, or the universe is about to hand me a very weird storyline. I try to sleep, and in the morning there's a DM waiting like a trap. OMG, Aaron, is that really you? You look so different now. And I stare at it so long my eyes go dry because half of me wants to ignore it and preserve my peace. And the other half, the raccoon half of my soul that loves drama like it's shiny, wants to poke it and see what happens. So I reply, yeah, it's me. How have you been? And she responds so fast it's like she had her phone in her hand with my chat open, ready like an emergency operator. She launches into a quick summary of her life. Lots of big changes, job problems, relationship stress, the usual greatest hits, and then sprinkles in compliments about my glow-up, which is a polite way of saying, congratulations on no longer looking like a sickly Victorian orphan. And the conversation snowballs into her asking what I do, where I live, whether I'm seeing anyone, and I tell her I work in tech, I live alone, and I'm single, but I date casually. And suddenly she's calling me smart and impressive, like she discovered electricity. Which is hilarious because in high school, my good grades didn't register as attractive at all. Apparently a GPA is worthless until it's converted into direct deposit. Then she hits me with, we should grab coffee sometime, catch up. And I almost choke on my own cynicism because catch up implies we were ever in the same story to begin with. But curiosity is a disease, and I've never had the vaccine, so I agree and pick a coffee shop near my place. When the day comes, I show up on time, and she's already there dressed like it's a first date with a guy who owns a boat. Hair done, makeup laid on with a trowel, top cut low enough to start an argument with gravity, waving at me like we're long-lost friends who survived a war together. And as soon as we sit down, she starts unloading her entire existence. She went to a state school, partied hard, got a communications degree, landed a marketing job, the company downsized. She's been exploring opportunities for 8 months, which is corporate code for unemployed and furious about it. She dated a parade of hot guys who all turned out to be jerks. And she just broke up with her boyfriend of 3 years because he wouldn't commit. Which, if you speak fluent Brittany, means the specific type of men she chases don't suddenly become domestic husbands just because she's tired. She asks about my job, and I explain what I do, and I can literally watch her attention drift 5 seconds in, but she keeps nodding like she understands, and then says, "Wow, that sounds so stable," with the kind of reverence normally reserved for saintly miracles. And then she adds, "I bet you have really good health insurance." And I'm sitting there realizing my dental plan has become a source of erotic intrigue. She laughs too hard at my jokes, touches my arm every time she does, compliments everything from my haircut to my watch to somehow my eyebrows, and then hits me with, "You were so quiet in high school, I barely noticed you." Which is wild because I distinctly remember her noticing me the one time I stepped out of my background character lane. And because I'm a masochist with a memory, I decide to bring it up. "Do you remember when I asked you to prom?" And her face locks up like a frozen computer from 1998, and she does this forced giggle and goes, "Oh my God, I was such a bitch back then, I'm so sorry." But the apology is packaged with excuses. I had so much drama, you have no idea. As if her emotional turbulence turned publicly humiliating me into a community service project. Because yes, I remember prom. I asked her, nervous and hopeful and stupid, and she looked at me like I crawled out of a sewer, then said, loud enough for her entire friend group to enjoy, "No way, as if I'd ever go with someone like you." And they all laughed in synchronized harmony while I stood there, feeling my soul detach from my body and float into the gym rafters. And after that, I avoided her like she was contagious. But humiliation has a way of branding itself into your brain. Back in the present, I change the subject because I'm not trying to relive a trauma montage over lattes. And I ask where she lives now, and she complains about rent and roommates in some sketchy area, and then I mention I live alone 10 minutes away, and her eyes sharpen like a predator spotting a convenient cave. "Wow, living alone must be amazing," she says, and she's suddenly very interested in the fact that I have a private space with a locking door and no witnesses. Eventually, she says she has to run, but before leaving she smiles and goes, "We should do this again. Maybe dinner next time." And I give a vague, "Yeah, maybe," because I can already feel the weirdness brewing. And then she hugs me in a way that is less friendly catch-up and more, "I would like to staple my body to yours," with full intentional chest contact like she's trying to stamp me with a watermark. And I go home and sit on my bed like, what the hell was that? Because I'm not flattered so much as I'm confused and slightly alarmed. Over the next few days, my phone turns into a Brittany delivery system. Likes on old photos, messages asking what I'm doing, suggestions for increasingly expensive restaurants, random thinking about you texts like we're in the middle of some romance novel she's writing in her head, and I start to feel less like someone being pursued and more like prey being tracked. I try to slow roll responses, keep things short, delay replies, give off the energy of a tired houseplant, but it doesn't deter her. It motivates her. Like my disinterest is a challenge mode. Then she asks if she can come over to my place. I could bring wine and we could really catch up. And every alarm in my brain lights up like a Christmas tree in a power surge, so I politely decline and blame work. And she backs off for roughly 48 hours before returning with new tactics. Monday morning, I get a LinkedIn request from her, which is when I realize she's not just flirting, she's collecting access points like she's assembling a full dossier. And later that same day, an old high school buddy texts me, "Yo, are you dating Brittany now?" And I'm like, absolutely not. And he says she's telling people we reconnected and have been seeing each other, and apparently she's been posting vague Facebook stuff like, "Sometimes the right person was there all along." and funny how life brings you back to what matters, as if she's rewriting the timeline with a Sharpie. I message her and ask what she's been saying, and she instantly plays innocent. Oh my god. No, I just said we caught up. People are being dramatic. Sure, Brittany, everyone misunderstood your inspirational fanfiction about me. I tell her I think we should keep some distance, and she flips it into a guilt trip with Olympic-level speed. Wow, okay, I was just being friendly. Sorry for trying to reconnect with an old friend. Which is rich because old friend is a fascinating label for someone who treated me like a stain on the wall. I stop replying and assume that's that, because I am adorable in my optimism. 2 days later, I get a text from an unknown number, and it's a long emotional message from her mother, which is when I realize this has moved beyond awkward into what the hell. And her mom says Brittany has always thought highly of me. An obvious lie, unless highly means as something to mock, and goes on about how Brittany is depressed, struggling, heartbroken, her boyfriend left her for someone else, she needs support, please give her a chance. She's changed. She's not the same person she was in high school, and that last part is true. Back then she was openly cruel, now she's weaponizing sympathy like a tool. I don't respond. And the next day after work, I walk out to the parking lot and see someone perched on the hood of my Toyota like it's a photo shoot set. And of course, it's Brittany, smiling like we're in a rom-com, and she goes, "Surprise!" As if that's cute and not extremely illegal in the court of normal behavior. I ask what she's doing here. She says she thought it would be fun to surprise me. Maybe we can grab dinner. And I ask, very calmly, how she even found my workplace. And she says LinkedIn, like that explains everything. Then I ask how she knew which car was mine, and she says, I asked around. And I just stare at her, because I asked around. Is not a sentence a healthy person says about someone else's car. I tell her she needs to get off my vehicle and leave, and her expression drops so fast it's like a mask falling off. And she goes, wow, I just thought it would be nice. And I say, it's not nice. It's creepy. And that's when she becomes the Brittany I remember, the one with the venom tucked behind the smile. You think you're so much better than me now, don't you? And I tell her, I don't think I'm better. I just don't want to be stalked. And she snaps. I was doing you a favor by giving you attention. And there it is, the rotten core of it, like the prom scene never ended in her head. I tell her I don't need that favor. And she gets angrier. You should be grateful I'm even talking to you. And I hit her with, kind of like when I asked you to prom. And her face goes red and she sputters, that was different, we were kids. And I'm like, yeah, and now we're adults, which is why you showing up at my job is even worse. And she starts raising her voice, insisting she isn't stalking me while people stare. And I repeat, get off my car. And she finally jumps down and throws one last insult like a farewell grenade. Fine, go back to being a loser. You haven't changed at all. And I breathe in, breathe out, channel the most dramatic anime energy I can summon in a corporate parking lot, point like an absolute nerd, and say something along the lines of, you thought I was still that insecure kid, but I'm not. And she looks confused because she has the spiritual depth of a puddle. And I get in my car, block her number, block her on every platform, lock everything down, tell my building security, tell my work security, and the next day a coworker brings up the parking lot show and goes, girlfriend problems. And I'm like, not even remotely. And after I explain, he laughs and says, she wouldn't have looked at you twice a few years ago. And I tell him she wouldn't have looked at me once a decade ago. And that's the point. A few days later, my high school friend sends screenshots of Brittany posting about toxic men and disrespect and being used, painting herself as the victim. And apparently she's been asking people about where I live, who I'm dating, how much I make, like she's shopping for a life raft. 2 weeks after I block her, I come home and find a handwritten letter in my mailbox. Because, of course, like we're in 1950, except instead of romance, it's insanity. And she writes about misunderstandings, hard times, how she only wanted to reconnect with someone who always understood her. Which is hilarious, because I never understood her. I barely interacted with her. I just had a dumb teenage crush and a front row seat to her cruelty. She says she's changed. She appreciates genuine men now, which is another way of saying the men she used to chase are done tolerating her and she's shopping in a different aisle. And she ends the letter with her number, in case you lost it. Like I accidentally misplaced the digits of my stalker. I crumple the letter, throw it away, warn my friends, keep my guards up, and eventually the whole thing fades out. And months later, I hear she moved to another city and is dating a doctor now. And I feel a brief moment of pity for that man, followed by gratitude that it's not my problem, because I won't lie. Turning her down felt good, in a petty, cathartic way. But the real win wasn't revenge. It was realizing I finally respected myself enough to walk away from someone who only saw value in me when it became convenient for her. And that lesson sticks, because it's easy to fantasize about proving people wrong, but it's better to build the kind of self-respect that makes you immune to their nonsense. Fast forward to me at 26. Yes, this story rewinds a bit because life likes to shuffle timelines like a chaotic DJ. I was in what I call my permanently exhausted pigeon era, working retail to fund night classes, living on caffeine, sarcasm, and a constant low-grade existential dread. And one day a coworker tells me I need to socialize before I become part of the store's furniture. So he invites me to a house party, and I show up holding a six-pack that cost way too much for my hourly wage because I'm trying to look like a person who has it together. Inside, the music is too loud. Everyone's yelling like that's how humans communicate. The floor is sticky in a way that suggests biology should be involved. And I'm scanning the room like a malfunctioning robot searching for a compatible species when I spot a girl sitting alone on a couch reading a book at a party, which is such unhinged behavior that I immediately respect it. I walk over and say, "What kind of degenerate reads at a party?" And she looks up, raises an eyebrow, and fires back, "What kind of degenerate comes to a party?" And I'm like, okay, she's funny, I'm listening, and her name is Emma. And I sit down and we start talking, and somehow 3 hours disappear like someone cut the timeline with scissors, because we click in this effortless way where the conversation doesn't feel like work, and we discover we share the same horrible taste in movies and music. And she laughs at my jokes, even when they're barely sentences. And before I leave, I ask for her number, expecting the classic polite rejection. But she gives it to me without hesitation, and I walk home feeling weirdly hopeful, like maybe my life isn't doomed to be an endless loop of retail shifts and sad microwaved meals. I text her the next day fully prepared to be ignored, and she responds within minutes like she actually wants to talk to me. And we set up coffee for the weekend, and I show up early because I'm an overthinking idiot, and when she arrives, she looks unfairly good for a Sunday morning, and the date is so smooth it makes me suspicious, like surely something should go wrong. But it doesn't. No awkward pauses, no phone checking, no weird power games. We spend 20 minutes arguing whether a hot dog counts as a sandwich. It doesn't. And I will die on this hill. And when the date ends, it ends with plans for another one, which feels like a miracle. 3 weeks later, we've been on 5 dates. Everything is going dangerously well. And I invite her over to my place to watch one of our mutually beloved terrible movies. And she shows up with beer and homemade cookies like she's trying to sabotage my ability to date anyone else ever again. And halfway through the movie, she kisses me, and my brain blue screens because I'm not used to good things happening without a catch. And she stays the night, and I wake up the next morning convinced I hallucinated the whole thing until I see her still there, stealing my blankets like a raccoon claiming territory. The next month is great. We're seeing each other constantly, and then she invites me to meet her friends at a bar, and my anxiety immediately clocks in for overtime. But I go because I'm trying to be a functional boyfriend type, and at the bar she introduces me to 2 couples, Ryan and Taylor, Madison and Ethan. And then there's Ashley, the single friend, who smiles like she's being polite, but her eyes say, "I'm evaluating your organs for resale." And within 5 minutes I can tell she doesn't like me, because she keeps slipping in comments that sound friendly, but land like little darts. "Oh, so you're the guy Emma won't stop talking about." And the conversation is full of inside jokes I don't get. And then they start bringing up Emma's ex, Brandon, like he's a beloved character who deserves recurring screen time. Remember when Brandon did that thing at Kayla's wedding? Brandon asked about you the other day, and every mention makes Emma's posture tighten like she's bracing for impact, and I try to steer topics away. But Ashley keeps dragging it back to Brandon Nostalgia Hour, and at one point, Ryan looks me dead in the face and asks, "So what are your intentions with Emma?" Like we're in a cowboy movie, and he's guarding the saloon. So I put on an exaggerated, old-timey voice and say, "Well, sir, I intend to court her honorably and request her hand after a respectable number of supervised outings." And Emma laughs so hard she almost snorts her drink. But Ryan doesn't laugh at all. And Ashley jumps in with, "Emma's been through a lot. We're just protective." Which is basically, "We don't think you deserve her," translated into concerned friend dialect. The night ends with Emma apologizing and telling me they'll warm up eventually. But I'm not convinced, because over the next few weeks I notice her phone blowing up nonstop when we're together. And every time she checks it, she looks stressed, like she's receiving orders. And one night I see a notification from Ashley that says, "Did you tell him about Brandon yet?" And I ask Emma what that's about, and she sighs and explains. Brandon is her ex of 2 years. They broke up 6 months before she met me, and Ashley and Madison are convinced she's not over him. And I ask Emma if she is, and she tells me Brandon cheated on her and then blamed her for it, saying she worked too much and made him do it, which is red flag behavior so bright it could guide aircraft. And when I ask why her friends keep bringing him up if he's that awful, she admits they romanticize the past, especially Ashley, who's known both of them forever and seems weirdly invested in the idea that Emma and Brandon are meant to be. And that's when I realize I'm not just dating Emma, I'm battling a friend group's fanfiction. We hang out with them a couple more times, and it's always uncomfortable. Throwback photos of Emma and Brandon appear like jump scares, stories about how cute they were together, little comments about how Brandon was such a good guy deep down, and Ashley acts like she's auditioning for the role of sabotage coordinator, until I finally ask Emma if we can take a break from group hangouts, and she agrees with visible relief. And when it's just us, things are amazing again. Like the moment her friends aren't in the room, her nervous system gets permission to breathe. Then the inevitable disaster arrives. During dinner one night, Emma gets a group text that Brandon is coming back to town, and everyone wants to meet up Friday just as friends. And they really want her there, and she asks if I want to come too, and every fiber of my being wants to decline. But I don't trust these people, and I also don't want Emma walking into that alone, so I say yes. Friday comes, and we walk into the bar together, and there they all are at a table. Plus Brandon, and I immediately hate him on principle, because he looks like the human embodylog. Tall, fit, perfect hair, perfect teeth, the kind of guy who could smile and sell you overpriced cologne. And he greets me with this smug, casual energy. "So you're the new guy." And Ashley practically maneuvers Emma into the seat next to him like she's seating people at a wedding, leaving me across the table with a front row ticket to a disaster. Brandon starts telling nostalgic stories directly at Emma, trips they took, concerts, moments where she fell asleep on his shoulder, and Ashley and Madison nod like loyal fans. You two were adorable. While Emma looks progressively more uncomfortable. And then Brandon puts his arm along the back of Emma's chair, like he still has a claim. And that's where my patience hits the wall. So I lean forward and say, as calmly as I can, "Emma mentioned you're really talented at cheating," and the table goes dead silent. Brandon's face darkens, and Ashley snaps that it was uncalled for. And I say cheating isn't a cute relationship issue, it's a deliberate choice. And Madison glares and says I don't know the whole story, and I'm like, what story makes betrayal noble, exactly? And surprisingly, Ryan looks like he's reconsidering his entire stance on this evening. Emma suddenly stands up and says she needs air and walks outside. And I follow, and of course Ashley follows too, because she cannot resist inserting herself into the plot. Outside, Emma turns on Ashley and says, "What is this? You promised this wouldn't be weird." And Ashley goes defensive and claims they just wanted closure. And Emma says there's nothing to clear up because Brandon cheated on her with a coworker, and that's why they broke up. And Ashley says, "People make mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance." And I'm standing there thinking, you are doing mental gymnastics so intense you should be on a podium. Emma narrows her eyes and finally asks the question that's been hovering like a storm cloud. Why is Ashley so obsessed with getting her back with Brandon? And Ashley hesitates just a fraction too long. And Emma's face changes as the math clicks. Oh my god, you like him. And Ashley denies it, panicking. But Emma doesn't buy it and keeps pressing. Is Ashley pushing this because she thinks Emma and Brandon belong together, or because if Emma doesn't take Brandon back, Ashley wants him for herself? And Ashley's face turns bright red like a confession light, and right then Brandon walks out and goes, "Everything okay?" And Emma turns to him and asks if he and Ashley ever hooked up, and the answer shows up on his face before he can lie. He finally says it happened after they broke up, and Emma asks how long after, and he stays quiet, and she forces it. How long? And he admits, 2 weeks. And Emma laughs, this hollow, dark laugh like someone hearing the punchline to a joke they never wanted to be part of, and she summarizes it perfectly. Brandon cheats on her. They split. He sleeps with her friend 2 weeks later. And now both of them are trying to push Emma into giving him another chance. And Ashley starts crying and saying it wasn't like that. And Emma asks what it was like then. And Ashley tries to claim they were both upset and comforting each other. And I can't help myself, so I mutter something like, "So you comforted each other with your genitals." And Brandon tries to do damage control by calling what happened with Ashley a mistake, which is the funniest possible choice because Ashley immediately looks betrayed. A mistake? You said you had feelings for me. And Brandon stammers that he was confused. And Ashley finally admits she thought if Emma and Brandon got closure, Brandon would realize he should be with Ashley instead, which is such a deranged strategy it could be studied in a lab. Emma just shakes her head, takes my hand, and says, "I'm done with both of you." And we walk away while Brandon and Ashley start arguing behind us like two villains whose alliance collapsed. In the Uber, we sit in silence for a minute, then Emma starts laughing. And when I ask what's funny, she says, "I thought they were being awful because they cared about me. Turns out Ashley just wanted my leftovers." And it's harsh, but it's accurate, and I tell her I'm sorry. And she squeezes my hand and says, "Not all of them are terrible, because Ryan texted her earlier that he and Taylor want us over for dinner. Just the 4 of us. Like some small island of sanity in the wreckage." We go back to my place, and Emma looks lighter, like she dropped a backpack full of rocks. And she thanks me for coming and thanks me for choosing her, and I tell her that was the easiest decision I've ever made. The next day, social media goes nuclear. Ashley posts vague statuses about betrayal and fake friends. Madison sides with her. The group chat implodes. Ethan declares everyone immature. Ryan and Taylor stay neutral. Brandon blocks people and disappears. And Emma, somehow, stays calm through it all, saying maybe she needed new friends anyway. A week later, we have dinner with Ryan and Taylor, and Ryan apologizes for grilling me the first time we met, and Taylor admits they always kind of thought Brandon was a douche. And for the first time, everything feels normal. No propaganda, no weird ex-worship, just people eating food and talking like adults. Afterward, as we're leaving, we run into a guy from Emma's work. He sees us holding hands and goes, "You two dating?" And we nod, and he smirks and says, "Fake and gay." And the air freezes, because what year is it, 2007? And Taylor looks horrified, Ryan looks ready to throw hands, and Emma steps forward and says, very firmly, "What did you say?" And the guy immediately tries to backpedal, claiming it's just a joke, like on 4chan, and Emma shuts it down with zero hesitation, using gay as an insult is pathetic, and nothing about our relationship is fake. And the guy turns red and mutters an apology before slinking away like the cowardly slug he is. And Ryan whistles and goes, "Remind me never to get on your bad side." And later, walking through the park, Emma stops and looks at me and says, "In a messed up way, I should thank Ashley and Brandon." And I ask why. And she says, because if they hadn't pulled that stunt, she might have kept those toxic friendships for years. And sometimes the silver lining is realizing what you don't need. 6 months later, we're still together. Emma moved in recently. We've built a new circle of friends who don't secretly scheme like cartoon villains. Ryan and Taylor are now part of our regular life. And somewhere down the grapevine, we hear Ashley and Brandon tried dating, and it lasted about 2 weeks before he cheated on her too, because karma may be busy, but she's never forgetful. And one day I see Madison at a coffee shop and she pretends not to notice me. And I'm totally fine with that, because I don't need to be part of that show anymore. And when I think back on everything, Brittany's sudden interest, the stalking, the entitlement, the way she tried to treat me like a consolation prize after a lifetime of ignoring me, and then Emma's friend group circus and the ex-boyfriend nostalgia cult, I realized the real victory wasn't in proving anyone wrong or flexing some imaginary success. It was in building a life that isn't shaped by people who want to use you, shame you, or rewrite you into whatever role benefits them. Because the best revenge isn't a glow-up photo or a perfect caption. It's the quiet, stubborn act of respecting yourself enough to walk away from toxic nonsense. And the even better act of building something real with someone who chooses you without conditions, without games, without needing to be convinced you're worthy. Which is honestly not bad for a guy who once looked like a strong breeze could file a restraining order against his bones.
If this confession kept you hooked, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We share powerful true stories every day that explore the complex realities of life.